I'm your cult boyfriend. I would love to talk to you about the third season of Beverly Hills 90210. This season felt very special, the end of an era, the end of the high school years. And it might sound strange, but I'm going to start my analysis of the season at the end of the season itself because I think that's the part that is still kind of blowing me away in a pretty big kind of way to the final episode of the season is where the gang graduates. Valedictorian Andrea Martin says, "No one can take this time away from you." And then the scene erupts with applause. What I've been focused on most within analyzing and engaging, interacting with Beverly Hills 90210 is that I'm really fascinated and interested in the legacy of the show. I think that this show, and by season 3, I can say it without any question, it's no longer a hypothesis. This is the show that revolutionized teen television, but in a much larger way, coming of age storytelling, which completely led the way to the Y2K era of film and television that I'm completely obsessed with and I think is the very best era. Beverly Hills 90210 is a revolutionary television show. By the end of season 3, it has properly serialized itself by incorporating soap opera storytelling mechanics into the coming of age dynamics and themes. We're no longer in after school special territory. That was a necessary thing to grow out of. And by the end of season 3, we have. Teen television is no longer Degrassi Junior High or Degrassi High. Teen television now is Beverly Hills 90210, and Beverly Hills 90210 is deeply complicated without ever losing its charm, and it's got buckets of charm. Through the first 3 seasons of Beverly Hills 90210, every other episode, a revolutionary act takes place, either through the archetypes that Darren Star, the creator and showrunner, is developing within our main cast, or through the plot lines themselves, which start off rather primitive. And by season 3, these kinds of storylines are more than cinematic, more than properly realized, but like revolutionarily designed. These are seasons that aired from 1990 to 1993. And thanks to the storytelling mechanics, and that are derived from the soap opera format. It's really the soap opera mechanics that revolutionized teen television. We can thank the soap opera for it. And I believe that Darren Star is someone who really appreciates what the soap opera did. Soap operas are probably one of the most interesting and best, and certainly most enduring forms of television art. And by incorporating soap opera storytelling mechanics, I still can't predict a teen show for the most part that's from 1990 to 1993 because a soap opera, any soap opera that's worth a damn, isn't afraid to not only jump the shark, but shoot the shark in the head with a harpoon as it goes over it. Season 3 is the season where I can most clearly see where One Tree Hill and Gossip Girl at their most heightened, at their most unbelievable, got their inspiration, got the courage, because Beverly Hills 90210 goes the distance, goes the extra distance, goes the soap opera distance. And since Darren Star, I can also say, is a genius of television, there's not a whole lot of Beverly Hills 90210 through these very long seasons that feels bad or even contrived, right? There's campiness, sure, but that campiness, I honestly believe, is self-aware. The show knows it, and the show exploits that when necessary for emotional gain or for cinematic profit. It's a deeply complicated show, and I'm going to say the word revolutionary quite a few times. It is revolutionary. And the graduation episode hit me so hard because to me, it was everything about teen stories, teen television and film and teen cinematic, teen visual stories graduating into the postmodern age, into the 90s, into our time, into modernity itself. The show is graduating along with the characters. The genre is graduating along with the characters. And I was at first mad that it was a clip show because clip shows are fucking lazy. They are lazy. And I was at first mad about it. And then I realized, but you can be really fun when you analyze it, Zach. You can say that this is the genre itself looking back on every revolutionary moment, every single step that Beverly Hills 90210 took to really bring teen storytelling into a level of sophistication and true 90s popularity. It became emblematic. And the archetypes themselves are graduating as well. Look how far David Silver came all throughout this show, completely eclipsed that of Anthony Michael Hall. What they did with David Silver was extraordinary, especially in the second season. But if I view these all as like combined, season 1 through 3 as almost a trilogy, it's incredible how far they came with some of these archetypes. Look at Dylan McKay. Look at him. In season 3, they were a bit heavy handed with the James Dean parallels. They were trying to shove it down my throat a little bit. And I don't really feel like Luke Perry really possesses what James Dean had. James Dean was pretty damn singular and unique. And the third season did try to evoke a lot of James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause imagery. There's an episode called Rebel with a Cause, and he even takes Kelly to a planetarium, the planetarium that's featured heavily within Rebel Without a Cause. It's actually like a major part of the plot of the original 50s film. You can see a lot of James Dean there, but you can see just as much of Bender within that as well. The thing that truly separates him or makes him kind of revolutionary for me is that I see way more Chuck Bass in him, especially in the third season since we started Chuck Bass from Gossip Girl, in case you're unfamiliar. One of my favorite characters of all time. And I see a lot of him within Dylan, especially in season 3, where we spend quite a bit of time with his like rich father, who is clearly um, at least partly antagonistic, trying to take advantage of his son's trust fund, using his son, preying upon his son's affections for him. And there are lines where Luke Perry, I think, is trying to sound incredibly brooding, like in a James Dean esque sort of way, but it comes off more nihilistic, which feeds into the Chuck Bass kind of aura that I'm getting from Dylan McKay. Now, I don't think that Chuck Bass was really inspired by Dylan McKay much at all. I remember Josh Schwartz saying that, the showrunner of Gossip Girl, claiming that Chuck Bass, his archetype is actually the James Spader villain from the erotic films of the 80s. And yeah, you can see a lot more Steph of Pretty in Pink within Chuck Bass than you can Dylan McKay within Chuck Bass. But Dylan McKay, the bad boy, the fact that I'm having to use all of these different like facets of other archetypes, and the fact that I think that Dylan McKay is so magnetic and so well developed and dynamic. I mean, he's a character who I definitely believe changed over time in unexpected ways from season 1 to the end of season 3. The bad boy is a wealthy intellectual. I mean, he's the prince to a gigantic fortune. Beverly Hills 90210 is not afraid to reduce him mentally to a child. I think one of the most touching parts actually does have to do with his father when, like, he can't get to sleep on his father's new yacht. It's absurd. But his father's like, remember what I used to do for you, son? And then he starts singing, Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And Dylan's acting like he hates it at first. And then this is probably the best acting from Luke Perry I've seen so far within the show. He breaks out into the song, and it's such a pleasant moment that reveals so much about the tortured inner child inside Dylan McKay, the beginner's mind. And even when his father dies, Luke Perry is haunted by like a 12 or 13-year-old virgin. Virgin. I'm sure he was a virgin when he was 13, but I think I tried to say version and it came out entirely wrong. By a 12 or 13-year-old version of himself who's ridiculing him for not being able to handle it properly. And since I brought up Dylan and David, they have a great conversation within that episode. David comes up to him and is like, I feel like we don't really like each other. We don't really know anything about each other, but I feel like I relate to you the most now because of what I went through with Scott. And what David went through with Scott was the death of a part of his archetype, which allowed him to grow beyond the limitations set by John Hughes. And not to say that John Hughes didn't do a lot, but there were restrictions, and Beverly Hills 90210 transcended all of those restrictions. And Dylan is going through the same thing. Dylan, as the bad boy, as the wealthy, brooding heartthrob, is becoming extremely dynamic and purely of the 90s, not in debt to a 50s version of James Dean, and certainly doesn't have to pay any sort of respects to Judd Nelson within the Breakfast Club, or James Spader in Pretty in Pink for that matter. He gets to be entirely his own icon. Dylan McKay, synonymous with the 90s. I think that Beverly Hills 90210 season 3 is so fascinating because I think it crosses the finish line beautifully, gracefully, even. This is a show that revolutionized teen television, and the graduation episode is its victory lap commencement. I'm shocked. I How beautiful I thought these 3 seasons were. So much heavy lifting, so much innovation, so much pure revolution. Speaking of revolution, I want to talk about Donna Martin. Is an episode that I really enjoyed just on a pure level that I enjoyed even more than the graduation episode was the one right before it. Donna Martin graduates. Donna Martin graduates. Donna Martin graduates. I want that spray painted on the walls. I want shirts of it. Dude, that is a political movement that that I can get behind. Can get behind that. Donna Martin graduates was so cool. Of course, that's the episode where they're trying to keep her from graduating due to her being drunk at the prom. I don't really think that's necessarily important to analyzing what's going on there. What's fun to engage with is Donna Martin becomes the figurehead for solidarity within the school itself and for rebellion against authority figures, against and another interesting thing when they finally do the vote and they all vote like aye or nay for Donna graduating. This was interesting, right? Every man on the board voted nay, and all the women voted aye. That is definitely making, I think, a rather feminist statement, and I think a rather confrontational statement against male authority figures. I liked that. That was fun. But I love the idea of Donna Martin, who Tori Spelling has completely captured me. She's stolen my heart. I think she's so fucking funny and sweet and adorable and just I love that character. David and Donna are my favorite characters by a landslide. I love being around Donna. Shout out to this bomber jacket. I want this bomber jacket so fucking bad. The CD print is sending me. I love Donna's style, dude. I think it's great. Probably a little Carrie Bradshaw esque, right? A little like Carrie from Sex and the City, which would be Darren Star's next project that he's arguably even more famous for. The guy's a television genius auteur, man. I like what I'm seeing from Darren Star so far. But this character is so sweet, and I think what I like so much about Donna is her hypersensitivity, how sensitive she can be. And Tori Spelling's performance is just like you can feel the emotions. And when she's being really sensitive over being called stupid or things similar to that, her heart breaks, and so does yours if you have a soul. And I have one, and my heart was fucking breaking with her, dude. I love Donna Martin to death. And oh my God, talk about taking an airhead archetype that is truly a product of the 60s and 70s that came through Hughes and came into the 90s. Talk about taking the airhead archetype and giving her dignity, giving her integrity, giving her complexity, but not too much because the show isn't like super contrived or just full of some sort of cinematic dishonesty. It gives you a believable amount. No, it gives you an inspiring amount. Donna Martin is an archetype that would never have been treated with integrity or dignity before Beverly Hills 90210. And she's not only treated in a dignified manner within the show, without ever losing her comic relief um, responsibilities to the plot that she mostly does serve. But she gets to be really rich and emotional and sensitive. And not only that, she gets to be the figurehead for an entire student revolution. Donna Martin graduates. And I think that's even saying something like fiercely powerful because I think that like a ditzy bimbo airhead archetype like Donna, and we know she's not that because we spent a lot of time with her, but she did start off that way, and that's the archetype that Darren Star and the writers behind the creatives behind Beverly Hills 90210 they inherited that kind of archetype and they made her into something that was multidimensional and unforgettable. It's almost like either the studio execs, the powers that be, or even the frameworks of cinema and television itself did not want that character to graduate like all of the others because they could not imagine uh, an airhead with integrity. But the students rebelled, the viewers rebelled, the kids rebelled, and she got to graduate. She got to be just as sophisticated as everybody else and recognized for her sophistication. This is a genius fucking show, man. That is so kind to its characters. Shannon Doherty, I am speechless around you. My God. Okay, this season, I think if it's known for anything, it would have to be the love triangle between Brenda, Dylan, and Kelly, that bitch. I'm joking. I appreciate all sides of this love triangle. In fact, the scene so far with the most actual passion, with the passion that you can touch, the most palpable passion within the show, the most romantic and erotic scene so far, without question, no doubt, is the pool scene where Dylan finally chooses Kelly over Brenda. And they kiss, and he's like, I chose you. Like, I've always wanted you. What does he say? I wrote it down because I get it confused with a different beautiful scene. I chose you. I want you. I've always wanted you. I get it confused with a scene from One Tree Hill. I don't want to spoil that episode, but let's just say that another troubled young man has to choose between a brunette and a blonde. And when he finally chooses the blonde, he says something remarkably similar. I prefer the One Tree Hill scene over it. It's one of the most touching scenes I've ever watched. But that scene would maybe that love triangle wouldn't exist at all without Beverly Hills 90210 actually. Same with the whole Joey Jen. I think that this love triangle might be the most like the cascading effect of influence from Dylan, Kelly, and Brenda might be endless when we get down to it. It's a show that I think does ask you to pick a side. It does ask, let's say, to put yourself into Dylan's position, probably, because it gives him time to choose. I think it's fucking funny. I would have chosen Brenda without a doubt. I think that Brenda is really complicated and is becoming a really interesting character. I mean, I understand that she is confrontational. She's not as agreeable as Kelly, but that's really what I like about her. I like that she's challenging. I like that in women. Uh, Kelly Kelly is deeply complicated, but her complications are really subtle. I think that Brenda, what makes her so sophisticated is easy to figure out. That this kind of at first she's this normal girl from Minnesota who is absorbed within the atmosphere of upper crust sensibilities and beauty standards, and kind of in a lot of different ways challenges those, because part of the part of the beauty standards is blonde, and part of the attitude of the beauty standard is super passive. And Brenda is neither of those things. She gets to kind of transcend the beauty standards by maintaining her own unique individuality, which makes her a lot more challenging than the others around her, and a lot more inspiring on account of that. Kelly is kind of just as sophisticated, but it's more subtle. She was brought up in that world, and she can't help who she is, and she can't help but feed into these beauty standards to the point of developing eating disorders within season three. And I absolutely believe that she does love Dylan. That was made pretty clear in the first season, that she definitely wanted Dylan. And if I'm not mistaken, Dylan's first words to like Brenda, because Brenda was right next to Kelly, was like, "I like blondes." You know, that's kind of, I think those were his first words. Correct me in the comments, but this was kind of telegraphed earlier. And like I said in my first video about Beverly Hills 90210, I thought that Brenda and Dylan became stale, a little boring, and they certainly found a way to make it more exciting. That said, Dean Cain is a charmless fuck. I don't like Dean Cain. I don't like that Paris thing. The Paris thing reminded me of Gossip Girl as well, with Serena and Blair going to fucking Paris, whatever. There's so much of every show that I love within Beverly Hills 90210 in a more, for lack of a better word, primitive way, but a satisfying way. Nonetheless, these other shows came and made and fleshed these ideas out, made them more complicated and whatnot. Blah blah blah. What I'm trying to say is fuck Dean Cain. He cannot compete with Dylan McKay. But I do like that no one's entirely innocent in this situation. Dylan was hooking up with Kelly, and Kelly was betraying her friend by hooking up with Dylan. Meanwhile, Brenda is hooking up with Dean Cain. Like there's errors on all sides. No one's an angel. It's just that Brenda puts up a better fight. Brenda makes she's far more interesting to watch when she has lost than when she has won. And that I think speaks more truthfully to Shannon Doherty's acting abilities. Uh, she is incredible when she's being challenging in response to being attacked, or a perceived attack. But what does it mean when, like, the princess archetype for that would be Kelly? What does it mean when she starts hooking up with the bad boy and they both start transcending their archetypal limitations together? We reach a new sincerity that I don't think would have happened with Brenda and Dylan. I think that Brenda and Dylan, they peaked somewhere within season two and became stale after that, and were no longer serving each other, no longer, just like in real life, they weren't helping each other grow. They've done all the growth they could do with each other. Now they have to transcend and grow as well. And by doing this, I think pretty complicated love triangle that owes a lot to soap opera storytelling mechanics. The love triangle itself helped escape the limitations of the limitations that were set for teen storytelling. It kind of broke those down, broke away the barriers, and wow, that was such a good storyline that lasted such a long time. And I didn't even think they were padding out the runtime. I loved every really dramatic moment of that storyline. And I think you'd have to be a fool not to think that Kelly and Dylan, they had more chemistry. Simply, Dylan, being the bad boy archetype, helped Brenda ingratiate herself within the culture of Beverly Hills 90210, without losing her individuality that made her an outsider to begin with, right? And once the bad boy became the insider as well, he has to end up with the ultimate insider being the princess of the entire group, which is Kelly. And Kelly and Dylan have a lot more chemistry. I think that everyone looks good together. Like I said in the last video, there's a undeniable power, um, when Luke and Shannon are on screen together, or when you see a picture of the couple. But there's passion. There's there's not just power. There's passion with Jenny Garth and Luke Perry, and yeah, I love that. I love that. The show being kind of fearless to alienate large parts of the audience, without ever losing that audience. There's got to be Team Brenda or Team Jenny out there. And there should be a lot of people who say that Dylan McKay is a fucking moron anyway, just in general. Like, I gotta say, Dylan McKay is a real fuck. But that's fine. Main characters should be disagreeable. And I like that this show doesn't mind having you feel personally betrayed by the beautiful, blonde, delicate princess. Kelly was great. And I like that Kelly and Dylan ended up together. It's the drama that I craved. And I was given. That's awesome. I think Brandon's the same. I don't want to make it sound like I I find his character entirely unlikable. There's charm to Brandon. There is. There's just not a lot of depth. He's not very deep. I don't really like him. Wait, I just said he's not unlikable. He's not unlikable. I just I have the same problem with Andrea Zuckerman, but I like Brandon more than Andrea. They're both flops, but they're not remarkably unlikable ones. There's nothing about them that like repulses me. I just don't like what they've done with them, with their archetypes, with their storylines. They're just not good. Steve has a lot of heart, and I love Steve. Steve is excellent still. I think I like Brandon and Steve together. That's probably why I like Brandon more than Andrea. Brandon and Steve together, that's a good duo. And Steve brings out a lot of really good moments from not only Brandon as a character, but Jason Priestley as an actor. So there is still a lot of charm to Brandon Walsh. It's just they're figuring out how to use him properly. It's just taking longer than the other characters. Andrea Zuckerman, she might just be a failure of a character at this point. I don't like her. Not much to like. We almost got to interesting points where she's tells Steve or Brandon, one of the two, like, I gotta do something I regret soon, or else I'm gonna go mad. Which I'm like, okay, I want a self-destructive, insecure arc from Andrea. I want that, but I didn't get that. I got her dyeing her hair to a slightly different shade. Like, whoa, big rebellion. And like, well, just fucking stop teasing me with the Brandon and Andrea thing. I think I might like the two of them if they were together. They might help each other grow together because they have like similar flaws, and maybe by putting those flaws together, when you put a mirror up to a flaw, the flaw tends to want to behave differently. Keep teasing us and we get closer and closer, but what the fuck, man? It's not like they have a ton of chemistry. There's not enough chemistry to tease me like this. Season 4, they better get together, or else I'm just fucking over that and over Andrea entirely, really. Brandon does say maybe the rich are different. At one point, Dylan hits the road, ends up on some farm somewhere. He says there are too many strings in LA, so he tries to escape the narrative itself, but without the strings, he's not tied to anything and might as well be dead. He's thankful for the plot. He's thankful for the soap opera that he tried to flee from. So he returns to the fold and to the narrative itself. But the graduation, you feel so big. Like a big accomplishment happened. Even in like the last few frames of the season finale when they're looking at that sign, like West Beverly class of 93. The 80s archetypes and storylines have finally become 90s ones. They've graduated. Beyond that, I think that teen television absolutely graduated into something to be taken seriously. At least something that you must contend with. It was such a popular series that you couldn't ignore it. The graduation itself represents a lot, something mammoth in its importance. Every archetype graduated by transcending their definitions and became vastly more interesting and superior. The storylines themselves, like love triangles and just the way that teen television was told, it's no longer a problem of the week. We have purely serialized soap operas here with deeply complex and controversial parts of the storylines. The structure, the plot itself graduated. Television graduated as a whole medium. It's hard not to feel like something very special was accomplished within the first 3 seasons of Beverly Hills 90210. Because something special was. Something revolutionary was. It's one of the most revolutionary things I've ever seen, and I'm so happy that I watched it. I'll be back to talk about seasons 4 and 5 next time. We're going to do 2 seasons in the next video. We're going to college. I want to see how they do college. Usually, a lot of shows trip and stumble around the college years. But I'm curious, can Darren Star pull it off? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But thank you so much for watching this video. I loved the first 3 seasons of Beverly Hills 90210. It was their time. It was its time. And no one can take that away from the class of '93. Thank you for watching me.